I've been driving trucks for 15 years. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff on the road at night, but nothing prepared me for what happened on Highway 40 somewhere between Nashville and Knoxville. It was around 2 in the morning. The road was completely empty, just me and the hum of my engine. I was tired but alert. You know that state where you're operating on autopilot but still aware of everything around you. That's when I saw him. A man standing on the shoulder of the highway, thumb out, the universal sign for needing a ride. Now, I have a strict policy about not picking up hitchhikers. It's company policy, and honestly, it's just common sense. But as I passed him, something made me look in my side mirror. He was running after my truck. Not jogging. Full-on sprinting. Faster than any human should be able to run, especially on a dark highway. His arms were pumping, his legs moving in this strange, jerky motion that didn't look quite right. But the speed. He was keeping pace with my truck, and I was doing 70 miles per hour. I pressed harder on the accelerator. 75, 80. I checked the mirror again. He was still there, still running, that impossible sprint that defied everything I knew about human capability. And then I noticed something that made my blood freeze. He had no shadow. The moon was full that night, bright enough to cast everything in silver light. My truck had a shadow. The trees had shadows. The guardrails had shadows. But this man, this thing running behind me at 80 miles per hour, cast no shadow at all. I pushed the truck to 85, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I looked in the mirror again, he was gone, just vanished. The highway behind me was empty, stretching back into darkness with no sign of anyone. I didn't slow down for another 50 miles. When I finally stopped at a truck stop, I asked the attendant if he'd heard of anyone getting hit on Highway 40 recently. He went pale. "You saw him?" he said. It wasn't a question. The runner. He's been appearing on that stretch of highway for 3 years now, ever since a hitchhiker got struck by a semi and killed. Witnesses said he was trying to flag down the truck that hit him, running alongside it, begging the driver to stop. The driver never saw him until it was too late. I've taken different routes ever since. I don't care if it adds an hour to my trip. Some highways aren't worth the time you save. I work night shifts at a hospital, so I'm used to driving home in the dark. My route takes me through some pretty rural areas, winding roads through farmland and forest. I've never had a problem, never felt unsafe until one night last October. I was about 10 minutes from home when I noticed headlights behind me. They appeared suddenly, as if the car had materialized out of nowhere. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was a public road after all. But then I noticed the car was matching my speed exactly. I slowed down. It slowed down. I sped up. It sped up. It sped up. Always maintaining the exact same distance, maybe 30 feet behind me. The headlights were bright, too bright, making it impossible to see what kind of vehicle it was or who was driving. I decided to test something. There was a turn coming up that led to a dead-end road near a closed sawmill. I took the turn. The car followed. My heart started pounding. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. I accelerated down the dead-end road, then quickly turned around in the sawmill parking lot, ready to speed past the car and get back to the main road. But when I completed my turn, the road was empty. The car had vanished. I sat there for a moment, engine running, staring at the empty road. Then I drove home as fast as I could. For the next week, I saw that car every single night. always on the same stretch of road, always follow. On the eighth night, I was so exhausted from taking the long way home that I decided to risk my usual route. I told myself I'd imagined the whole thing, that I was just overtired and paranoid. The car appeared right on schedule. But this time, as we approached the spot where it usually vanished, something different happened. The headlights suddenly rushed forward, closing the distance between us in seconds. I screamed and braced for impact. The car passed through mine. I felt a wave of cold wash over me, saw a flash of images, a woman's face, terrified, headlights, and then it was gone. My car was still moving, still intact, but I was shaking so hard I had to pull over. I later learned that a woman had died on that stretch of road 5 years ago. She'd been followed by someone, ran off the road trying to escape, and crashed into a tree. They never caught who was following her. I don't work night shifts anymore. I requested a schedule change, and my supervisor approved it without question. Some people say I should feel honored that she's trying to warn other women about the danger she faced. But all I feel is terror. Because I know that if I drive that road at night, she'll be there reliving her final moments, and I'll have to relive them with her. I was driving home from visiting my girlfriend at her university, about a 4-hour drive through the desert. I left late, around midnight, figuring the roads would be empty and I'd make good time. Around 2 in the morning, I needed to use the bathroom. I'd been seeing signs for a rest stop for the past 30 miles, so when I finally reached it, I pulled in immediately. The place was completely deserted. Just a small building with bathrooms, some vending machines, and a few dim lights casting yellow pools on the concrete. My car was the only vehicle in the parking lot. I should have kept driving. The bathroom was exactly what you'd expect from a desert rest stop, grimy and smelling of industrial cleaner and something else, something stale and raw. I did my business quickly, washed my hands, and headed back out. That's when I noticed my car wasn't alone anymore. There was another vehicle parked next to mine, an old station wagon with wood paneling on the sides. The kind you don't see much anymore. It hadn't been there when I walked in, I was sure of it. But what really bothered me was that the engine was running, and the windows were fogged up, completely opaque with condensation. I approached my car carefully, key already in hand. As I reached for the door, I heard it, tapping, coming from inside the station wagon. A rhythmic tap 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 against the glass. Someone was inside. Every instinct told me to get in my car and leave, but curiosity is a stupid thing. I moved closer to the station wagon, trying to peer through the fogged windows. The tapping grew more insistent. Then, slowly, a hand emerged from the fog. It came from inside the car, muffled but clear. A woman's voice, weak and desperate. "Please help me. He locked me in. He's coming back." I should have called the police. That's what a smart person would have done. Instead, I grabbed the door handle and pulled. It was unlocked. It was unlocked. The door swung open, and a wave of cold air rolled out, along with that smell, rotting meat and stagnant water. The car was empty. No woman. No person at all. Just empty seats and that overwhelming smell. But on the dashboard, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A Polaroid photograph, facing up. It was a picture of me, standing exactly where I was standing, looking into the open car door, taken from somewhere behind me. I spun around. The rest stop was still deserted. No one was there. No one could have taken that photo. but it was me in the picture, unmistakably me, wearing the same clothes, the same expression of confusion and fear. I ran to my car, locked the doors, and drove away so fast I left tire marks on the pavement. In my rearview mirror, I saw the station wagon's door slowly close by itself, and then the whole vehicle just faded, like it had never been there at all. I called the highway patrol the next morning and told them about the rest stop. They said there was no rest stop on that stretch of highway. There had been one years ago, but it was closed down after several disappearances. People would stop there and never be seen again. I've driven the Pennsylvania Turnpike hundreds of times. I know every exit, every service plaza, every mile marker. So when I took exit 87 on my way home from a late showing, I knew immediately that something was wrong. Exit 87 doesn't exist. It was late November, sleeting, and I was exhausted. I'd been showing houses all day and just wanted to get home. When I saw the exit sign, I didn't think twice. The number seemed right, and I recognized the town name. I took the exit. The off-ramp curved down into darkness. My headlights illuminated sleet and the reflective paint of the lane markers, but nothing else. No buildings, no street lights, no other cars. Just darkness in that long, spiraling exit ramp that seemed to go on forever. I should have reached the bottom in 30 seconds. After 2 minutes, I was still descending. That's when I noticed the mile markers. They were counting backward. I passed one that said mile 4, then mile 4, then mile 7, then mile 12. Negative mile markers. That's impossible. The temperature in my car started dropping. I had the heat on full blast, but I could see my breath. The sleet on my windshield was forming strange patterns, almost like symbols or letters in the language I didn't recognize. Finally, the exit ramp ended. I found myself on a street in a small town, but everything was wrong. The buildings looked normal at first glance, houses with porches, a gas station, a small church, but there were no lights in any windows, no street lights, no signs of life at all. And every building was identical. Not similar, identical. The same house repeated over and over. The same gas station on every corner. The same church. I drove through the streets, trying to find my way back to the highway. Every turn led to the same view, those identical buildings stretching into darkness. My GPS wasn't working. My phone had no signal. The radio played only static. Then I saw the people. They were standing on the sidewalks, perfectly still, facing the street. All of them looked exactly the same. Same height, same build, same blank expression. As I drove past, their heads turned in unison to follow my car. Their mouths moved, all speaking the same words, but I couldn't hear them through my closed windows. I panicked and accelerated, running a stop sign, desperate to find a way out. That's when I saw it. An on-ramp. A sign that said Pennsylvania Turnpike. I didn't care if it was real or not. I took it. The ramp spiraled upward, the mile markers counting forward now, positive numbers climbing higher. Mile 12, mile 7, mile 7, mile 4. And then I was back on the turnpike, merging into light traffic, real cars with real people driving them. I looked at my car's clock. Only 3 minutes had passed since I'd taken the exit. 3 minutes. I'd been in that town for at least 20 minutes, but only 3 minutes had passed in the real world. When I got home, I checked every map, every GPS system, every guide to the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Exit 87 doesn't exist. It never has. The exits jump from 86 to 88. But I know what I saw. I know where I went. And sometimes when I'm driving the turnpike late at night, I see it again. That exit. I do overnight deliveries for a medical supply company. It's good money, and I don't mind the solitude. Or at least, I didn't mind it until the night I picked up a passenger I never let into my car. It was mid-January, one of those bitter cold nights where the temperature drops below zero. I was driving through rural Maine, miles from the nearest town, when I noticed something odd. My passenger seat was adjusting itself. The electric seat was moving forward, then reclining slightly, like someone was getting comfortable. I reached over and touched it, manually pushing it back to its original position. It immediately moved forward again. I pulled over, my heart racing. I got out and checked the passenger side. The door was locked, the windows were up, there was no one in my van. But when I got back in the driver's seat, I could see the indentation. Someone was sitting in the passenger seat. The cushion was compressed. The seat belt was pulled slightly to the side, and there was condensation forming on the window next to the seat. Someone was breathing. I sat there, frozen, staring at the empty seat that wasn't empty. Then I heard it. A voice, quiet and calm, coming from right next to me. Keep driving. It was a man's voice, middle-aged, with no particular accent. Just a normal voice, as if a friend was sitting next to me giving directions. I need to get home, the voice continued. Please keep driving. I should have gotten out of the van. I should have run. But something about the voice was sad, desperate but not threatening. And I was in the middle of nowhere, miles from help. If whatever this was wanted to hurt me, it could have done so already. Where? I managed to ask, my voice shaking. Follow the road, the voice said. I'll tell you when to turn. I drove. What else could I do? For the next hour, the voice gave me directions. Left here, right at the next intersection, straight through the stop sign. We went deeper into the back roads, areas I'd never been, until we arrived at an old farmhouse, dark and abandoned. Here, the voice said, thank you for bringing me home. The passenger seat adjusted back to its neutral position. The indentation disappeared. The condensation on the window evaporated instantly. Whatever had been sitting next to me was gone. I sat there for a long moment, engine running, staring at the dark farmhouse. Then I saw a light appear in one of the upstairs windows, just for a second. A warm yellow light like a candle or an oil lamp. And in that light, I saw the silhouette of a man, standing at the window, looking out at me. He raised his hand. A wave. A goodbye. A thank you. Then the light went out, and the house was dark again. I drove away and didn't stop until I reached the nearest town. At a 24-hour diner, I asked the waitress about the old farmhouse, describing the location as best I could. She knew exactly which house I meant. The Hendricks place, she said. Old Tom Hendricks lived there alone for 50 years. He died about 6 months ago. Heart attack while he was out getting his mail. Collapsed right there on Route 27, about 60 miles from his home. Died instantly. 60 miles. Right about... I travel a lot for work, usually driving between cities to meet clients. Last March, I was driving through the mountains late at night after a dinner meeting ran long. The roads were winding, barely 2 lanes, with steep drops on one side and rock walls on the other. I was about an hour from my hotel when I adjusted my rearview mirror and saw him. A man was sitting in my back seat. I screamed and swerved, nearly running off the road before I caught control and slammed on the brakes. I spun around, my phone already in hand, ready to call 911. The back seat was empty, completely empty. My overnight bag sat there undisturbed, exactly where I'd left it. I checked the doors. All locked. I'd locked them before leaving the restaurant, a habit I've had for years. No one could have gotten in. My hands were shaking as I adjusted the mirror again, telling myself I'd imagined it, that it was just the stress and the late hour playing tricks on my mind. I started driving again, watching the road, trying to calm my racing heart. Then I glanced at the rear view mirror. He was back. This time I didn't swerve. I stared at the reflection. A man in his 40s, wearing a dark jacket, sitting perfectly still in my backseat. His face was pale, his eyes dark and hollow. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking down at his hands, which were folded in his lap. I turned around again. Nothing. The back seat was empty. But in the mirror, he was there. I tried the side mirrors. Nothing. I tried tilting the rearview mirror away, but my eyes were drawn back to it, compelled to look. And every time I looked, he was there, sitting in that same position, staring at his hands. Then he looked up. Our eyes met in the mirror, and he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something I didn't. Someone who was enjoying my fear. His lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear, but I could read them in the mirror. Look at the road. I snapped my eyes forward just in time to see the sharp curve. I'd been drifting toward the edge, toward the guardrail and the 100-foot drop beyond it. I yanked the wheel, overcorrecting, the car fishtailing before I regained control. When I looked in the rearview mirror again, he was closer. Leaning forward between the front seats, his face inches from mine in the reflection. His breath should have been on my neck, but I felt nothing, because he wasn't really there. He was only in the mirror. Watch the road, his reflection mouthed again. For the next 40 minutes, he stayed there, leaning forward, his face right behind mine in every glance at the mirror. And every time I looked at him instead of the road, something would happen. A deer would jump out, a pothole would appear. Another sharp curve would come up faster than expected. He was keeping me alive. This thing in my mirror, this impossible presence, was making sure I watched the road. Every time I was about to crash, he'd warn me. Every time danger approached, he'd force me to pay attention. When I finally reached my hotel parking lot, I looked in the rear-view mirror one last time. He was sitting back in the seat again, hands folded, looking down. Then he faded away, slowly. I've been driving trucks for 23 years. I've driven through every kind of weather you can imagine. Blizzards, ice storms, flooding rain, you name it. You name it. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the fog I encountered on Highway 101 along the Oregon coast. It was late September, around 3 in the morning. I was hauling a load of electronics down to California, making good time, when I drove into a fog bank. Now, fog is common on the coast, so I wasn't worried at first. I slowed down, turned on my fog lights, and kept going. But this fog was different. It was thick, unnaturally thick, like driving through milk. My fog lights barely penetrated 5 feet ahead. I slowed to a crawl, maybe 15 miles per hour, following the white line at the edge of the road because that was the only thing I could see. Then I started hearing the voices. At first, I thought it was my radio, but when I turned it off, the voices continued. They were coming from outside, from the fog itself. Whispers at first, too faint to make out words. But as I drove deeper into the fog, they got louder. They were calling my name. Michael. Multiple voices, men and women, old and young, all saying my name in this sing-song way that made my skin crawl. Michael, stop the truck. Michael, come outside. Michael, we've been waiting for you. I locked my doors and kept driving, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The voices grew more insistent, more aggressive. Michael, stop right now. Michael, get out of the truck. Micah, G-H-E-L. Then I saw the figures. Shapes in the fog, walking alongside my truck. I couldn't see their faces clearly through the fog, just vague outlines of people. But their eyes glowed. A faint blue light, like bioluminescent algae, dozens of pairs of glowing eyes all focused on me. One of them reached out and touched my truck. I heard the scrape of fingers on metal running along the side of the trailer. Then another touched it, and another. Soon it sounded like 100 hands were running along my truck, scraping, tapping, pounding, pounding. Michael, join us. Michael, it's so nice in the fog. Michael, you'll never be alone again. I wanted to speed up, but I couldn't see the road. I was terrified of running off the cliff that I knew was somewhere to my left. So I maintained that agonizing crawl, 15 miles per hour, while those things walked beside me and called my name. Then my CB radio crackled to life. I hadn't turned it on, but there it was, a voice coming through the static. Driver, this is Coast Guard Station Chetco. Do you copy? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab the receiver. This is Michael Hansen. I copy. I'm on Highway 101, trapped in fog. There are things outside my trucks. We know, the voice interrupted. We're tracking you on radar. Whatever you do, do not stop your truck. Do not open your doors or windows. Keep driving forward. You're almost through. What are they? I asked. There was a long pause. We don't know. They appear every few years in this area. The fog comes in, and they come with it. Ships have reported them. Cars have reported them. Most people who stop, we never find them again. The scraping on my truck was getting louder, more violent. I heard something climb onto my hood. A face pressed against my windshield, leaving a smear of something oily and dark. It was gone. The fog lifted as quickly as it had appeared, like someone had turned off a switch. One moment I was surrounded by that thick, impossible fog and those glowing-eyed things. The next moment, clear night sky, stars overhead, empty highways stretching ahead. I pulled over at the next rest stop and inspected my truck. There were handprints all over it, hundreds of them, in that same oily substance I'd seen on my windshield, and they didn't wash off. I had to repaint the entire truck. The Coast Guard never contacted me again. When I tried calling the station they'd claimed to be from, they said no one by that name worked there. They said they had no record of any radio contact with me that night. But I know what I experienced. I know what's out there in the fog. And now, whenever I see fog rolling in on a coastal highway at night, I find a place to park and wait it out. Because some fog isn't just weather. Some fog brings things with it. Things that know your name. Things that want you to stop, to step outside, to join them in their endless walk through the mist. I don't know what they are or where they come from. But I know this. If you ever find yourself driving through fog that feels wrong, fog that whispers your name and shows you glowing eyes in the darkness, don't stop. Keep driving. Always keep driving. And pray that you make it through to the other side.